They're sleek, they're affordable. And in countries from Europe to Southeast Asia, Chinese electric vehicles are taking over the roads. Brands like BYD, NIO, and Xpeng are changing what it means to drive electric. But here's the question. If Chinese EVs are so cheap and so popular worldwide, why can't American shoppers buy them? Tonight we uncover the hidden story of trade wars, sky-high tariffs, national security fears, and the future of global car competition. Stay with us because the answer isn't just about cars. It's about the balance of power between the United States and China. Before we explore the barriers, we need to understand the company at the center of it all, BYD. Founded in 1995 by Wang Chuanfu in the booming tech city of Shenzhen, BYD has grown from a small battery manufacturer into China's #1 automaker. The name is often thought to mean "build your dreams," a clever slogan adopted later for marketing. But in truth, it began as a simple transliteration of three Chinese characters, BYD. Today, BYD dominates China's electric vehicle market. In 2024, it controlled 32% of all new energy vehicle sales, compared to Tesla's 6.1% share. BYD delivered 4.27 million cars last year, including hybrids, and generated $107 billion in sales, a 29% jump from the year before. By comparison, Tesla sold 1.79 million EVs with $97.7 billion in revenue, its first year of declining deliveries. While most BYD cars still go to domestic buyers, about 10% are exported to markets across Europe, South America, Southeast Asia, and the Middle East. Its electric buses and taxis already serve major cities worldwide. Analysts believe BYD's momentum will only grow as new models equipped with advanced driver assistance systems roll out in 2025. In short, BYD is no longer a local Chinese company. It's a global heavyweight. But despite its worldwide success, American consumers can't walk into a dealership and buy one. In the past decade, China has built the world's largest EV industry. Backed by heavy government subsidies, battery technology breakthroughs, and massive domestic demand, China now makes more than half of the world's electric cars. BYD has overtaken Tesla as the world's top EV seller. NIO and Xpeng are pioneering luxury electric sedans with futuristic features. In Europe, these cars undercut local brands by thousands of dollars, offering cutting-edge technology at a fraction of the cost. So naturally, American consumers ask, if a brand new BYD sedan costs $30,000 in Europe, why can't I buy it here for the same price? The answer begins with U.S. trade policy. The first wall-blocking Chinese EVs is simple: money. Since 2018, Chinese-made cars have been hit with steep tariffs under Section 301 of U.S. trade law. That's a 27.5% import duty, already enough to make most Chinese vehicles uncompetitive in the U.S. But in 2024, the U.S. government raised the stakes dramatically. President Biden announced a quadrupling of tariffs on Chinese EVs to 100%. Add in the standard 2.5% auto import tax, and you're looking at a 102.5% tariff. Think about what that means. A $30,000 BYD sedan arriving at an American port suddenly costs more than $60,000 before it even hits the showroom floor. That wipes out the entire advantage of cheap Chinese cars. And there's more. Under the Inflation Reduction Act, only cars built in North America qualify for the $7,500 EV tax credit. Chinese imports don't. So not only are they double the price, they're also missing the incentives that Tesla, Ford, and GM buyers get. In short, even if Chinese EVs were allowed in, they'd be priced out of reach. But tariffs are only the beginning. Even if BYD or NIO wanted to sell in America, they'd face a labyrinth of safety and regulatory rules. Every car sold in the U.S. must meet federal motor vehicle safety standards. That means crash tests, airbag systems, lighting, seatbelt design, and more. Hundreds of detailed requirements. Chinese automakers have already run into this problem. When Guangzhou Auto tried to bring its SUV, the GS8, to America, it had to redesign the vehicle to pass tougher U.S. crash tests. That adds years of delay and millions in cost. And now regulation goes beyond airbags and seatbelts. It's about software. Modern EVs are computers on wheels. They collect data through sensors, cameras, GPS, and internet connectivity. In late 2024, the U.S. Commerce Department issued a chilling warning. Chinese EVs could be used for espionage. Officials fear that data from onboard cameras or microphones could be sent back to Beijing. Or worse, that in a conflict, cars could be remotely disabled on American roads. As a result, the U.S. introduced rules banning Chinese-made automotive software and electronics from new cars. The phase-out begins in 2027, with hardware bans by 2029. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo put it bluntly, "We don't want 2 million Chinese cars on the road and then realize we have a threat." That effectively locks out Chinese EVs on national security grounds. This battle over cars is part of a much bigger story, the U.S.-China rivalry. For Washington, Chinese EVs aren't just cars. They're symbols of China's rise as a technology powerhouse. China's EV industry is heavily subsidized, letting companies sell cars at prices Western automakers can't match. U.S. officials call this dumping, flooding markets with artificially cheap products to kill competition. And the stakes are enormous. The global auto industry is worth trillions of dollars. Whoever dominates the EV market will control jobs, technology, and energy policy for decades to come. That's why Washington is pouring billions into its own EV industry. New battery plants, tax credits for American buyers, and protectionist tariffs to give Detroit a fighting chance. Europe, too, is cracking down. The EU launched an anti-subsidy probe into Chinese EVs, fearing European factories could be wiped out. In other words, the West sees cheap Chinese EVs not as an opportunity, but as a threat to economic security. But what about American drivers? Would they even buy a Chinese car if given the chance? Surveys show a split. Younger buyers under 40 say they would consider it, especially if it's thousands cheaper than a Tesla. Price matters, but older buyers remain skeptical, citing concerns about quality, safety, and, most of all, privacy. One survey found that a majority of U.S. consumers worry about data security in Chinese cars. The idea that your car's cameras could be sending footage back to Beijing, that makes a lot of Americans uneasy. And there's another factor, brand loyalty. Tesla, Ford, and GM dominate the U.S. market. Buyers know them, trust them, and have service networks nearby. A new Chinese brand would need to invest billions just to earn recognition and support customers. It's telling that BYD, the world's top EV seller, has openly stated it has no plans to sell passenger cars in the U.S. right now. They know the political and consumer climate is stacked against them. Does that mean Americans will never drive Chinese EVs? Not exactly. Some Chinese companies are exploring backdoors. BYD has considered building factories in Mexico. Under the USMCA trade deal, cars built in Mexico or Canada can enter the U.S. with fewer tariffs. Meanwhile, Chinese-owned brands like Volvo and Polestar already sell in America, but under European branding. Their cars are built in China, but marketed as Scandinavian. That's one way Chinese companies quietly enter the market without triggering consumer backlash. Still, as of 2025, no major Chinese EV brand, not BYD, not NIO, not Xpeng, has launched in the U.S. The combination of tariffs, missing tax credits, strict safety rules, software bans, and national security fears creates a wall too high to climb. For now, Chinese EV makers are focusing on friendlier markets, Europe, Southeast Asia, and Latin America. So why can't American shoppers buy cheap Chinese EVs? Because Washington has decided they're too risky, too subsidized, and too threatening to U.S. industry. Because regulators fear not just accidents, but espionage. And because Chinese automakers themselves see little reason to fight a battle they can't win. Not yet. In the end, the story of Chinese EVs in America is about much more than cars. It's about trade wars, security fears, and the race to control the future of transportation. And for now, that future will be built in Detroit, not in Shenzhen. Pause, fade to music. But as the EV revolution accelerates, the question remains, how long can America keep China's cars out? And at what cost?